Mormons.
I'm Mandy.
And I'm Charlotte.
And I'm Susan.
Huzzah!
Yes! We have a very special guest for everyone today, and we're so excited for this, our 102nd episode.
Yeah.
Of Family Home Evening.
How is that possible?
I know. 102.
It's like you committed to it and you did it.
Right.
You kept doing it.
I haven't checked our stats for a little while, but I checked them this morning. We're at 194.6 thousand plays.
Dang.
Nice.
Should we do something for 200,000?
Yeah, we should.
Let's have a photo shoot.
Holla. You know I love a photo shoot.
Well, cheers.
Cheers.
We're drinking our favorite On the Rocks Cosmopolitan.
Mm-hmm.
It's delicious.
They're so good. They're a little pricey, but all you gotta do is add ice to them.
And you're done.
And you're drunk.
Yeah.
And Susan is a lightweight. I
Yes.
like these too, and this is going to be interesting.
I love it.
Hey, so shout out to our patrons.
Hey, patrons.
I actually have a prototype in the mail coming. It should be here tomorrow. Of the merch we've been promising to send you, which is our Choose the Bad ring.
Yes.
I found a place that does custom jewelry, and I was kind of thinking, well, first of all, there's only so many letters that could fit in the engraving. So
Right.
it ended up being Choose the Bad by default. But obviously, if you've been listening to our show, you know by choose the bad, we mean choose the fun, or
Right.
choose the bad, choose the things that the church would say are bad.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
drinking and taking drugs and premarital sex.
Whoop,
and,
whoop, my favorite.
All the fun things. Driving in cars, which I'm about to get to in Mormon Corner. Anyways, choose the bad.
And loving people that aren't white.
Right, there you go.
The Lamanites.
So thanks for your support, patrons, and yeah, we got some cool shit coming
Super
your way.
excited.
For
Did
real.
you get enough for me? I want one too.
I only got one prototype.
Oh,
We'll
son
see
of
how
a
cool it
bitch.
is.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. So
All right, sweet. I don't really have anything to repent for because I'm rad.
I feel like there was something. Well, here's what I'll repent for. I really wanted to make time to watch the Godmakers that we talked about last week.
Right.
The Christian church people that were trying to
Make the Mormons look bad, even though they
by
just
telling the stories that Mormons also tell,
Right.
exactly verbatim. So I'm gonna make time for that this week.
Okay, I do know what I'm going to repent for, even though I didn't think I did. I'm going to repent for being a born-again fundamentalist Christian
Yeah.
for like 20 years. And I'm also going to repent for the story I'll tell later. which we'll leave hanging for right now. There's some definite repentance around all that.
Perfect.
love it.
I have I've dug out this copy of The Miracle of Forgiveness, which is a book that one of our listeners sent to us. And we haven't read from it for quite a while for Mormon Corner, but I figured maybe, I'll just take a look and see. And I found some really good shit.
Oh.
I found a chapter called Avoiding Pitfalls. The Miracle of Forgiveness is written by Spencer W. Kimball, who was the prophet of the church when I was a little kid in the 80s. And he wrote this book, and it's something else. But Avoiding Pitfalls, it talks about the chapter is basically like pitfalls for youth, the problems with steady dating. I think we read the thing about heavy petting. There's a little chapter in here about how you shouldn't drive a car. And it's, I'm going to kind of skip to the good stuff, but it says, basically it tells you why you shouldn't have a car, and you shouldn't just be judged, your popularity shouldn't be judged on like how cool your car is. But it says...
Is that why the missionaries ride bicycles?
Yeah, I think so. It says lane ends, canyons, desert wastes, and quiet streets at late hours. These are places where people discuss little of art, music, or gospel doctrines, but where they think often of baser things. They talk in lower veins. And when the talk wears thin, there are things to do, the doing of which brings dust and ashes where roses should be blooming.
Oh my God.
Like they're talking about fucking in the car.
Now, who doesn't drive to the end of a road to talk about art?
Exactly.
Or gospel.
And then there's a bunch of other stuff, and then it comes to this chapter called Immodesty. It says, other things besides cars and darkness encourage unchastity and immorality. We should read that again. Other things besides cars and darkness encourage unchastity and immorality. One of them is immodesty. The young people today, and we're talking about the 80s.
Yep.
The young people today seem to talk about sex glibly. They hear it in locker rooms and on the street. They hear it in shows and on television. They read it in the pornographic books everywhere.
Oh, if only he knew what it was like now.
Oh,
Welcome to the internet.
Oh my God, could you even imagine? I see some of our LDS mothers, wives, and daughters wearing dresses extreme and suggestive in style. Even some fathers encourage it. I wonder if our sisters realize the temptation they are flaunting before men when they leave their bodies partly uncovered in a dress.
This guy is a big fan of the prairie dress.
Yes, 100%. It's like a turtleneck.
Which, by the way, my family was not religious growing up, but my mom sewed.
Okay.
And so she would make all of our clothes, and we'd talk about the psychological abuse of this. She would make matching clothes, outfits for all of us. And me and my sister it was one Christmas outfit. It was, Holly Hobby with the little bonnets.
Yeah.
So she made Holly Hobby appliques on an apron over a long dress. It couldn't, I think that's probably, I'm an honorary Mormon for that.
Yeah, I think so.
And we had bonnets.
No!
Yes.
That does sound like some Mormon shit.
I'll dig up a picture. I'll show you, Charlotte.
You should send it to us and we'll put it on the internet.
Yes. No, wait. I'm going to rethink
Wait, stop.
this. You shouldn't have told me that.
I'm just kidding. I would never do that without your written I got nothing. Consent, thank you. I was like, words are hard.
So just to wrap this up, don't wear tight sweaters, don't drive a car, and go to church.
Don't listen to the heavy metal music.
Definitely don't.
Oh, dark. Don't ever be in the dark.
Don't be
even
the dark.
Even though half of our existence.
Bad things happen. You turn to dust and ashes where roses should bloom in the dark.
Sounds hot. Sounds hot.
Yeah, totally. So anyways, Mormon Corner.
Mormon Corner.
Cheers.
All right, cool shit.
Should we talk about Maverick?
If we must.
Was it cool shit or was it... Have you seen Maverick yet, Susan?
I have not.
Okay.
I don't think I'm going to, so...
So we can spoil... Well...
Yeah, you can spoil it.
No, she's fine. She doesn't.
But don't spoil it for your audience.
That's true, yeah.
Oh. Well,
Well, you can't really spoil it. It's the same fucking movie it was before.
only not as good. It had pointless subplots that weren't well explained or had any sort of character development, which usually I hate overly, developing a character. I'm not an idiot. I can figure it out. You don't need to spell it out to me. But when you have zero character development, I'm like, who is she and why is she here? I don't understand what's happening. Oh, she has a kid now? Great. Don't care.
We have this long-running joke between me and Charlotte and our sister Tiffany that, I just love every movie that comes out, and every movie I love is terrible. And Tiffany hates everything.
Not wrong. Tiffany does hate
Charlotte's,
everything.
What, in the middle? This is
I
I
find-
find more hates than likes.
But
Okay.
I loved the New Kids in the Hall. Tiffany hated it, which doesn't make any sense.
I love it.
It was so good, right?
So I texted Tiffany this morning and I was like, I hated the movie. And I was like, well, I didn't hate it. There was some cool parts. To be fair, I was drunk when I watched it.
Very
So I should probably watch it again. But she's like, did you hate it because Tom Cruise flew himself to the premiere on a helicopter? And I was like, well, I didn't know that.
Oh,
that's
now I
amazing.
hate it.
Amazing.
You think that's amazing?
No, it's
Well,
amazing in a
amazing
bad way.
That
bad
makes me
way.
hate it.
In a
Okay.
bad
Yeah, I was
way.
gonna say, I was like, wow, that's amazing because that's amazingly
Douche
stupid
move.
and
Yeah.
douchey.
But it sounds on brand for him.
100% because that guy's a loser.
They put so much advertising money into it. It's on the side of every bus and building,
Right.
and everywhere you look.
Well, so right before the movie started, we had to sit through Tom Cruise thanking us and congratulating us for being in a movie theater. Because it deserves to be seen in a theater.
Oh
and
my God.
COVID be damned.
He's such a
not
pompous
exactly,
ass.
but he's just such a douche. And of
Yeah.
course, but I'll tell you what. As much as I don't like Tom Cruise, I am kind of excited for the new Mission Impossible movie.
I gave up on those when I saw the second one.
Yeah, the
Because
first
that
one
was
really where it
overblown.
was at.
The first
Yeah.
one was good. Second one, I'm like,
Plus, I had Emilio.
oh, seriously? He's going to walk past this doorway, and there's going to be a fire, and then doves are going to fly? Done.
Did John Woo
Never
direct
again.
it?
Yes.
'Cause-
That was
a product of the time.
It's a certain style, but it's not my style.
No.
Can't do
I've
it.
never seen any Mission Impossible movies.
Well, we're gonna rectify. You can repent for that next week.
Okay.
Can I go back to when you said Kids in the Hall? So I have kind of a cool shit story to tell around Kids in the Hall. So back in the day, I have a friend. He works for Discovery Channel. He works for National Geographic now. But he was best friends with Scott.
Scott Thompson. That's so
one
rad.
day, me and my friend, we planned. His name's Terry. We planned to go to the museum up in LA on Wilshire, and they have this modern wing, which is now the whole collection of what's in the Broad. But the Broad didn't exist back then. It was the Broad collection at the LA County Museum.
Rad.
And so we went to go see that. And he goes, can I invite my friend Scott? I had never watched Kids in the Hall back in the day.
Oh.
Now, I have a gay brother.
Right.
And my brother absolutely worships Scott because that
he's
was
amazing.
the out gay person when he was growing up
that
gave
happen.
him permission that this was going to be okay.
Right.
That and Harvey Milk, those two things,
Yeah.
told my brother, I'm going to be okay.
Right.
Which kids growing up in my generation needed that desperately. So anyway, went with my friend Terry and Scott to the museum, and Scott and I'm not looking at him like a celebrity. I recognize him, right?
Right.
But I don't have any kind of idolization
Right.
or anything because I've never seen
Which is
him.
actually the best way to
It's
meet
the
a
best-
celebrity.
It was the
Lucky.
best way.
Right?
It was the best way. And so I ended up, Scott wanted to touch everything. And I was freaked out the whole day. Like, I was just like, no, you can't. And he's like, so this is not part of the Broad collection. At least I didn't see it in the Broad recently, but it's these giant walls. They're like 12 feet high and they curve and they're rusted. Like it's like 2 inches of steel and it's just rusted. And they just interlock with each other and you just walk amongst them, right? And it's just this giant, it takes up a giant room. And he is like, I just want to touch this. And I'm just like, and you get into places where nobody can see you, right? Like the guards or whatever, the people that are watching the art can't see you. And I'm just like, and he never touched anything.
Right.
I think at a certain point he was only doing it to freak me out.
Yeah.
Because I was just like so freaked out all day. But like, and then we ate in the cafeteria there. And then we ended up at some place called Milk that like had cake and milk.
Milk is
Oh,
great.
yeah,
dessert.
milk's awesome.
Like
Milk is
we
great.
ended up there, and it was just such a lovely day. And after that, Scott went back to Canada. He was fighting cancer and all kinds of
shit.
things.
Okay.
And so like seeing them come back,
Yeah.
and like now I'm watching it, but I have nothing to compare it to because I
Right.
never watched the original.
I honestly, I think the
lovely.
new
I
one
love
is
it.
just as good as the old one. My sister thinks like they're trying too hard, but I think she's just an asshole. I mean, I love her, but you know, she
Her
hates a
sister?
lot of things.
No, Tiffany.
Okay.
My sister
the other
Tiffany.
sister.
I thought it was great too.
And again, so Tiffany's the person who introduced me to Kids in the Hall. You know, I want to say they were around from 88 to 95. I probably got into it around 97. So they were already off air, but I just idolized it, and it was great. You didn't see openly gay characters. You didn't see men dressing as women.
Right.
And so it was
they do that literally almost every sketch.
every single sketch, and they don't do it like I'm a man dressed
No.
as a woman, like ha ha ha, so
They
funny.
do
It's
it-
like, no, this is the character that I'm portraying, and it's
Yeah.
a ridiculous woman half the time, but it's a
Yeah.
woman nonetheless.
Yeah.
Or Scott did the best like moms. He's always like, now honey, or whatever, and it's like you don't even remember that he's a dude because he's now your mom.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just awesome. So the fact that I felt they could do that. There was only a few sketches that I was like, that wasn't great. But not everything is going to be gold. I love the amount of dick that I got to see in it.
I didn't like that. I didn't want to see that.
Tiffany was not happy about it
Yeah,
either.
that surprised me actually.
I liked it because it
I
was
liked
surprising.
it because it was surprising.
Right?
I did. That
'Cause
was,
I was like-
pretty funny.
I like-
I'm like, oh, so they're doing that. Okay.
Right. Well, so when he's like, oh, they won't expect two naked people. And I thought for sure, like, so when they got out and they were still, like, you couldn't see him out of the car because the doors were open. And I was thinking, we'll probably see, like, a blurred crotch area because that's how they
Or
would
a
normally
sock
do it.
or-
Or, yeah, something like that. No, but, like, I think what they would normally do, like, for the TV would have been just a blurred thing, so you would just use your imagination. But I was like, oh, okay, that's a dick. And,
And a lot of it.
and
Just
it
a
was
long
just
time.
constant,
Just-
and then it was jumping up and down,
they
floppy
doubled-
dick.
they
and then they were just going to go with it. And that was hilarious.
I loved it so much. So yes,
I did love that.
it
I'm
was
glad
great.
you mentioned that because I forget.
Right, you
what
even
I
told me, it's
saw
like, I'll remind
with
me to tell you
ADHD.
about
Yeah.
the Scott Thompson story, and I was like, oh, I want to hear all about it, and then I forgot about it too because life.
ADHD.
Yep.
Yeah, my brother. Now you should know, my brother works for one of the most I won't name names. One of the most famous people on earth, and he works on his private plane. And my brother has met the biggest celebrities in the universe, okay? He is still so jealous that I got to spend a day with Scott. Like, that's what makes him jealous. And it's
love that.
Like, and my brother is completely non-jaded, like, or jaded about, like, meeting famous people. Because
well, they're just people.
He takes care of famous people all the time. That's not a thing for him.
Right.
But Scott is a big deal for him.
Well, because
of that. It's because it's
totally.
in the heart. It's in the heart.
We talk about that a lot. Like, that, we have a few stories that we've told over the course of the podcast where it's like we've met somebody who we really admire, and
most people could give a shit about.
Yeah, that's right.
And we're just like, they're good.
We're like, I love you.
Okay, that would be with me with Senator Chris Murphy. That's how I would be. Because I would just be, you're my hero.
But also, to your credit, like, we went to go to a concert. Like, it was me and my friends went to a show in Anaheim, something like that. It was Go Betty Go, which is like a girl punk rock band, whatever. I listen to their music, but I don't know them. I don't, I'll listen to them a little bit on my own, but it's not a band I grew up with or idolize or anything like that. And so it was a concert, but it was also like an art show too. And so I saw these pictures and I really liked them. I had no idea who did the art or anything like that. I was like, I knew that they were associated with Go Betty Go because it was like their concert poster kind of things, but they were the actual like original blah blah blahs. Anyways, I was just like, they were selling each individually for a certain price, and so I went up to the lady and I was like, hey, if I buy them all, all four of them, can I get like a little bit of a discount? Because I think they were like $150 a piece, which isn't expensive and it's not cheap, right?
Right.
And so they knocked $50 off, and I was like, okay. She's like, she had said, she's like, oh, actually, the artist is here. Let me go ask her real quick. So again, I didn't put anything together. Yeah. Ends up that the lead singer of Go Betty Go was the artist, and
that's so cool,
right? And so, and again, I was like, whatevs. Didn't really know that. So as we're packing, she's bringing out these pillowcases and we're packing them up together. She's like, I'm so glad that they get to stay together, and you seem like really nice. And I'm like, oh yeah, I just love him. And my friends are over there going, what the fuck? Why are you talking to her? Like, what's happening? And I was like, is this, oh yeah, she's the lead singer apparently. They're like, yeah, duh. And I was like, I could care less because.
Well, that just reminds me, like so it's the Amber Heard Johnny Depp week.
Right.
And it's like, there is no way that I don't believe Amber Heard because I like Johnny Depp.
Nope.
I loved Edward Scissorhands.
Right.
But I'm not a huge Johnny Depp fan.
Yeah.
I just watched every frickin' second of that trial.
Because it was fascinating.
It was fascinating. Just the whole thing. It was fascinating.
And I want to be a lawyer now. So.
I kind of don't. Because most cases are not that.
No.
Like, most cases are not that. But, like, being beholden to a celebrity and letting them get you out of your own head and your own life. But our whole culture's built around that. Like, they are a brand that gets built in your head.
Right.
But you're a brand too. Like, you're a person. You have a value in the world. Like, they're no more valuable than you. Like you said, they're just people.
Right. Well, and I want to say to that too, because we have some friends, we kind of touched on this last week, that are kind of like, no, you have to believe Amber because she's a woman. And it's like, go fuck yourself. All the people who are saying that are people who didn't watch the trial, who looked at memes that were made about the trial, but didn't actually watch any of the evidence. It's like, no, I believe victims until they prove that they're liars, and then I don't trust them anymore.
What gets me about that too is like so it's our friend Joey,
right?
Who's a really good friend of ours, and I just can't fathom why he is so passionate about. I mean, we've gone back and forth on Facebook 5 times or so about this, and he's just like, he's like throwing articles at me like, did you read this article? And it's like an article written by Monica Lewinsky about how we should always believe women.
I read that article.
And she
admits it herself.
She's like, I've
didn't
seen
watch
the
the trial.
memes. And
She hasn't seen it. So if you watch the trial,
she didn't watch the trial at all.
Her concern is that most people watch this trial through some memes.
Right.
In fact, they got it. It's like processed food.
Right.
They got it. Somebody ate it and they regurgitated it. And she's worried that regurgitated version, because she lived it. More than anybody. And boy, do I have a heart for her.
Right.
She lived it more than anybody, of getting regurgitated by a culture. But like, I've been raped twice in my life.
Right.
And I know what it's like to not want to report, to not want to tell anybody, to like feeling like I won't be believed.
Right.
There's a significant person in my life I will never tell.
Right.
Because that person knows the person.
Right.
There are people that I told that I'm related to that still invited my rapist to their wedding and not me.
Right.
It's things,
That's fucked
and
up.
they know.
Yeah, that's
So,
super
like,
fucked up.
I know that side of the culture. I know the fear of not being believed. We should listen to women because there's a lot of women that don't speak up.
Right.
I'm one of them. Like, I understand that. But I also watched that whole trial.
Right.
And
and people like her doing this make it harder for people to come forward who actually experience it.
Infinitely. Right. It's a problem. And I also see her, you know, they mentioned it. They didn't go into detail on her past. But, like, she has abuse in her past and her youth. And that created the person that she is.
Right.
That would react and, like, create these, like, it's a fantastical story. He's not a perfect person.
Definitely.
But I'll tell you what, it did affect me when I saw that video of him slamming cabinets.
Yeah,
back
that was
then.
uncomfortable.
I was like, oh, he is an ass.
100%.
This is true. I'm done. And like, we can come to really quick opinions about people. So maybe we believe women. Maybe we listen. Maybe we don't cancel people right away. Most situations cannot be proved to
Right.
reasonable doubt.
Right.
Like my situation.
Right.
Unless he was willing to admit it, I have no proof.
And yeah, because how do you prove that?
It's me versus him. That's
Right.
it. And that's how a lot of situations are. I found Christine Blasey Ford, her accusations about Kavanaugh to be very credible. And then I listened to people, very tribal people, say, you know, how they absolutely did not believe her.
Right.
And I was just flabbergasted by
Yeah,
it.
same.
That's the
Right.
chasm we live in these days, with just people completely on opposite sides and cannot figure out the bridge between the two.
Yeah, we've kind of like seamlessly gone into this motherfucker.
Right, let's
already.
go, let's do
But,
it.
like,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, that argument could be made for the way we digest information as a whole, whatever the information is. It's like, you know, and I'm guilty of it just as much as the next person. Like, you know, GQP memes are like my breakfast every morning, you know, and I don't fully research every article unless it's something that interests me, but like, that's how we all get our information about everything. Whether
It's sound bites and
Yeah.
and you know, the little bit of, and Twitter tries to say, are you sure you don't, do you want to read that article before you retweet it?
Right.
I'm like, nope, the headline's good enough for me.
Right.
And it's like, no,
And not
it's
only-
not. It's not. And by the way, I read the Monica Lewinsky article.
Yeah.
And
I
I'm
read
like,
it too.
she has a very specific thing
that she's talking
that
about.
she's talking about, and it's not necessarily in support of Amber Heard, but it's in, she's talking about society
privacy,
as a
right?
whole. Well, about how we digest
Right.
regurgitated information
Right.
that is coming. And sure, actually, most of the regurgitated stuff is more Amber Heard positive.
Right.
Because they didn't see the whole thing. And they
Right.
can't weigh all of that.
Well, and again, if you watch Johnny Depp slamming the things and acting like an ass, and, you know, for somebody who was, you know, engaged to somebody
looks
who was an
violent.
alcoholic who would
Yes.
act like that,
Yes.
I totally 100% understand it. But do I think he was verbally abusive and acted like an asshole? 100%. Do I think he's a trash person? Probably.
Do I think he sexually assaulted her?
Do I think
do not.
Or do I think that she grabbed her and repeatedly punched her in the face?
I do not.
Absolutely not. Because she, solely based on everything that she submitted as far as pictures and like
Well, a
all
lot
the
of it-
evidence and whatnot, she didn't bother to document her face being bruised is bullshit.
And then there were the things where it's like two different photos submitted for the same incident.
Right, the hair is
different
in the
incidents,
exact same
but
spot.
the same photo. And
Right.
like, it's just a lot of different, there were a lot of problems.
Right, and so that's the thing, is if she wanted to sit there and write her op-ed and do all of that about what a verbally abusive
What a
piece of shit
culture
he
is
was,
like?
or even just to say that, because you can, what is it that Emily D. Baker says, like,
Yeah.
protected speech is if it's true. If you're lying about it, that's not protected speech.
Correct.
And she was she was embellishing her stories, and she stole stories from other survivors and made them her own. Like, that's not okay. She manipulated everything. If she just told it the way it was, you know what? She probably would have fucking won. So fuck her, like, pretty much. Because again, fuck her because she made it harder for actual victims to tell their truths and be believed.
Can I add to this motherfucker? Like,
Yeah.
we made it
Totally.
that, but I didn't mean to make it that. I'm just basing it on like everything that you guys have talked about in past episodes, where you're like naming a person And then they did this stupid. It's usually like Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
The
like
hit list.
so they did this endlessly stupid thing. And here's the thing that I've noticed, especially on Twitter, but just it gets television coverage. It gets everything. They like Marjorie Taylor Greene misspells.
Mud butt turd girl, you mean?
Yes. Mud butt turd girl. She, like the gazpacho police and the peach tree dish.
That was my favorite.
And she's reading from a thing when she says that.
Right.
So nobody spelled peach tree dish.
Yeah.
Right? They do it on purpose. This is my theory.
I've read this too.
They do it on purpose.
Yeah.
Because it serves two purposes. It's everybody's going to pile on, and that's engagement.
Right.
And then
boost the algo.
The people, anybody that will be likely to believe they're crazy is more likely to see that post about whatever the other content that's in it, other than Peachtree Dish, right? The other stuff. They get to disseminate that message.
Yeah.
So that's number one. And I try really hard not to respond to those things. Also, it reinforces these people feel like victims and like they're told they're stupid all the time. And Trump was the first person that ever told them you're smart,
right?
You're funny, and people like you, like that. And so we amplify them because that's how the Twitter algorithm works,
right?
And Facebook and everything. It's like the more you engage, and I watch some of the big people with big followings that I follow. I will see their response because they will show me how my friends responded.
Right.
But I would have to scroll through thousands of responses
right.
and replies to see anybody that I don't follow.
Right.
And the people that believe everything she says and are like, oh, I get to feel smart because she's like me. She makes
right.
word mistakes too.
Yeah.
Or like, and look at all those liberals calling her stupid, and it makes them more tribal.
Right.
And they never see your witty takedown response.
Right. No, because
never
they see their own friends.
They're more likely, yes,
yeah.
but they're more likely to see her thing in their feed because you engaged.
Right.
I can't fix this by myself. I tell
right.
people all the time, you know what? You're just giving her engagement.
Yeah, take screenshots.
But they don't
retweet.
Right.
Yeah,
oh,
correct.
yeah.
Correct. But a lot of people want to reply. And
to tell them, wow, you're really dumb.
Like Jim Jordan. Like there's
I'm guilty.
People.
Jim Jordan, every time.
Jim Jordan sometimes gets me. I'm going to just admit that. And Matt Gaetz has gotten me at times. But I'm just like, it's a general motherfucker for me, is this behavior. And they know, I feel like they have backroom meetings where they discuss, here's how to game the algorithm.
Right.
They take in the junior, shit posters.
Right.
And they say, okay, here's what you're going to do. And you are never going to engage on any of their stuff.
Right, because they never respond.
No. And they don't.
They don't probably even look at their own Twitter,
Even the MAGA crowd, like sometimes they'll come at you, but most of the time they don't. They don't want to give you engagement. It's like, it's a secret thing they all know. And we just we're the dumb ones.
Right.
Engaging in that because that's how that system works, and they don't fix it.
Right. So what you're telling us is that here
don't respond
at
to their bullshit.
FHEBadMormon, we need to start being dumb.
You need to say stupid things.
So people will
retweet
retweet us and make fun of us and push us out there.
That's right. Look at these dumb liberals. Look at these dumb liberals. They don't know what they're talking about.
No, but you're absolutely right. That makes total sense. Because whenever I post something, I'm always like, Craig, Mandy, comment and like on my thing so it'll boost my algo. And we just joke around, but it's true.
It's true.
But it's also true.
And it's also true if it happens quickly. Like all
it has
of the
to be
things.
within 3 minutes, something like
and
that.
And the more it does, it's the same thing that TikTok did better than everybody else did. It's like, how quickly you respond is important. So there's some people that just hang on these accounts, right? They have alerts, they have all kinds of things set up. So they will see the minute Jim Jordan, so they can get the first comment in there. And I'm like, you're killing us with that. You're killing us with that. Because more people that are susceptible to their, toxic, pollutant messages are going to hear them. More people that are disenfranchised to begin with, that, really want that tribalism message.
So really just engage on things you So it's
Screenshot it. Screenshot it if you need to make a comment for your own mental health.
Right. Right.
Which is why I'm on Twitter. Right. Strangely.
Well,
because I can't talk like this on Facebook.
You put none of us
That's where
can.
my family and my business and whatever is. So on Twitter, that's my mental health outlet.
Right. Well, like if you focus on positive things, so you never say the things that you don't want to happen. You say the things you do want to happen, right? So let's say it was just like I don't, instead of saying, I don't want to get in a car accident, like, I'm going to drive very safe, whatever, just as an example, right? So you don't focus on the negative, you try to focus on the positive. So instead of finding the negative people out in Twitter and engaging with them, find the positive things of the message that you want to spread, and then amplify that instead. So I think that's why Facebook and Twitter and all the things have gone so negatively, because we like to argue.
But here's the thing. But even my favorite people, like Chris Murphy, my favorite senator, if he posts something that's about like, oh, here's this really great thing we did for Vermont today, I'm not going to retweet that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing.
I mean, what if it was like awesome? And you're like,
we
want more of that.
When he gets on the Senate floor and he's like, what are we doing? We all came here to do something, and kids are dying. And like, he makes this impassioned speech. I will retweet that for the next 100 years.
Right.
Like,
no, that's true.
It's when, like, they go there to do a good job for us, I think, to make life better, like, hopefully, but we are in a shit posting culture.
Right.
And unless something gets your anger riled up or your incensedness, like you're just furious about, like, how could this be this way? I want to do something about this. But just like, oh, we, passed this ordinance and it makes this life, 0.1000% better for everybody.
Right.
Nobody cares, and that is really what we want from them.
I do think you need to bring awareness, though, about certain things that, like, have potentially like negative light or negative impact.
I agree.
And retweet those things, just because you don't want to be like, you have to find that balance between being positive and being affirming and having the echo chamber respond to you what you want to hear, but at the same time it's like you don't want to be in the dark about things that are really affecting other people in the world around you.
Well, we're slipping into fascism. Yeah. We've got to say, we've got to point at it and say, see what that, what that is.
I got something I want to point at.
Okay.
Just real quick. For this motherfucker. I just came across this morning. This was yesterday. There's a PAC in Georgia. So, there's a few different, key races in Georgia that are coming up. There's obviously Marjorie Taylor Greene versus Marcus Flowers. That's going to be a really fun one to watch.
Right.
There's this one, you've heard of Raphael Warnock,
yes,
right?
I love him.
I do too. And then his opponent is this guy who was just selected in the primaries named Herschel Walker.
Oh my
He's
God.
an ex-football player, right? And he's kind of a douchebag and kind of a dipshit. And he says really stupid stuff, right? He's like the next Madison Cawthorn or whatever.
Right.
Like, we needed another one of those.
But this PAC that's getting financial contributions and supporting him as a candidate, they tweeted this yesterday, and they're like, this is a huge morning for whatever the PAC is. We're giving away over $4,000 in free gas. And they've got people holding up signs that say, like, Warnock isn't working. They're showing pictures of themselves with these little flyers for the free gas that says, like, don't vote for this guy, vote for this guy, which is a fucking
illegal
felony.
Right.
Illegal.
It's a federal felony and a state felony. And so
of
it's
course,
all over Twitter.
So of course they're doing it because it's on brand.
Yeah. I mean,
Committing election felonies.
yeah. Is anything going to happen to them? Probably not. But we're, boosting the fucking algorithm by, sharing this or whatever.
Right.
But you have to share that stuff.
You have
Right. Well, again, because I didn't know about that. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like anything happens unless there's a public outcry, right? So unless there's a public outcry,
true.
then
it's true.
Nobody's
matters.
talking about how Clarence Thomas needs to recuse himself because his wife tried to overthrow the government. Mm-hmm.
And then he tried to be the only no vote on whether or not they could subpoena the phone records from the White House because his wife was implicated.
And how is that not bigger news?
He's been a shithead since the beginning.
But, I mean, it's not just that.
And I was a Republican when that whole Anita Hill thing went down.
You were a Republican?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I was a Republican, and I was a born-again Christian until I was pretty much 40.
Okay, I think this might be a good time to take a break.
And we'll come back with story time from Susan.
Yeah, let's hear one from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
And we're back.
Welcome back.
Wow, that was quick.
Now's the time on Family Home Evening with Bad Mormons where we tell you great, funny stories that make you want to laugh and
be
cry
a better person,
and...
hopefully, maybe. Be like, oh, at least it's not, at least I never did that.
You guys are going to have to make this funny because I don't think it's very funny.
Oh, don't worry. I think it's pretty fucking
this should
funny.
Really be it's under repent. So back in the day, so I was a born again Christian by choice, not by family. Like my family was not really whatever, and they started. I think my parents went through a rough spot, and they started taking us to like Calvary Chapel. Mm-hmm. That's the church I went to, and it totally like sank in with me. Now my mom had given me like a living Bible, like a little illustrated Bible when I was young. They were Lutherans. They didn't care that much. We didn't go to church. But I started, when I was about 13, I got saved at a camp and all that stuff. Yeah.
Can you tell us about that just a little bit?
Well, so we had this conference center up in Lake Arrowhead, and it used to be one of those old motels that had like 2-story rooms in a satellite like ring around a circular whatever
cool.
main. The circular main thing was like where the kitchen and the dining room, and there was like a little stage and a little like room, and then a lobby upstairs. It was like a 2-story. So it was like this old hotel that they bought, and it was all very nice. I was 13, and it was pretty wholesome, and but Calvary Chapel, every single freaking event, they're asking you to accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior every single time. So, and I did, and when I was 13, but I didn't have the family support or anything like that. So I just, oh boy, Charlotte's pouring me some more. And I'm telling stories. Okay. So we, so I gave my life to Jesus, and it didn't totally stick because I didn't have a family that was going to church.
Well, and you're 13.
And I'm 13, but it was just kind of in there without the support. And as I graduated high school, I became very punk rocker, started going to clubs all the time, and my cousins had all like come to Jesus.
Sounds familiar.
Isn't that the way? And they, were proselytizing to me and stuff, and one of them got me to come to Easter. Here's how he got, I'm like, I'm not getting up at 4 a.m. for a sunrise service for Easter. And he goes, well, Jesus got up on a cross and died for you, and you can't get up at 4 a.m. And I was like, wow, that is some fucking guilt trip. So,
that escalated quickly.
Yes. No hyperbole there. And so I went, and as God would do to me, I don't believe in God anymore, but as God would do, there was a cute guy in this little circle of people that was very flirtatious. And I was like, well, he's not going to like me if I don't come to Jesus. And so I came to Jesus. And then because I came to Jesus, I'm like, well, I can't do it for a cute guy. You got to leave me alone so I can like really focus and figure out what this is for me. So I got very serious about it. He was kind of in and out of our group and left. So we were the kind, like with my cousins and everything, we would have like Saturday night Bible studies, because like being able to go to church every night of the week wasn't enough.
Right. Jesus.
We would go like Sunday.
Fucking awful.
And I made some deal with God, like I don't have to go to church on Sunday mornings because I wasn't a morning person.
Yeah.
And I can go look in punk rock, like whatever. Take me as I am.
Right.
So I went Sunday nights, like Bible study nights, and I went like Wednesday nights. And then we did our own thing on Saturday night. Like, you love it so much that you're doing your own Bible studies. And we would have our own retreats. Like, we'd rent a giant house up in the mountains, and like I'd plan all the food. And I hate cooking, but for 2 or for 1.
Right.
But for 40, I love it.
Right.
Like,
it's actually kind of great.
Yeah. And so that was my life for a long time. And I met my fiance through this group, and we got married. He was one of the people that raped me.
Oh, God.
When we were engaged. We were supposed to be celibate, and that didn't go well.
Wow.
Married him anyway because I just buried that, did not want to think about it, and then it was a real problem. So anyway, while I was married, I got involved, mostly me, in Operation Rescue. And if you've never heard of that, that was all those crazy people sitting in front of abortion clinics in the early 90s. Late 80s, early 90s.
With pictures of fetuses?
Oh, yeah. All of the things.
No.
Like, I've actually seen an aborted fetus because of my involvement with this group.
Jesus.
And I worked on their newsletters. Like, I was involved with everything. And we, the main things, we would go up, there was a certain abortion clinic up in, like, the Wilshire district up in LA that we'd do every Easter.
I don't know why that makes me laugh, but it just does. Happy Easter!
I need to go back. I don't tell these stories often, and I didn't even back then, because my opinion back then was I did not want Roe v. Wade to change, and that was not common amongst the people I was with, but I did not.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to change hearts and minds, and literally, I don't know why more people don't just decide that is the way. If you are really pro-life, help change people's minds so that they wouldn't do the thing you don't want them to do.
Right.
Like, because otherwise people go get unsafe, risk their lives because it is that important to them.
Right.
Tell us the story, and then I want to ask you some questions.
Okay. I know you'll have lots of questions. So anyway, I got arrested at that particular one twice. The first year I just pled out. It was like a 6-month probation. And it's just basically said in LA city proper, I could not do that same thing.
Was it you were trespassing, or what?
Yeah, what was the
charge?
So the usual charges were trespassing, failure to disperse, and blocking a public right of way. Those were the charges. But I would just go down to San Diego. Like, we would just, so... And I never got arrested between these 2 times. And then I got arrested second time, same place. And for that one, I went to an actual trial for... I was on trial with, I think, 12 people with me. None of us had attorneys. We were all pro per. That's when you represent yourself.
Jesus will take care of it.
Well, and here's the thing. I'm at a frickin' law library in Santa Ana because we had, like, motion in limines, which what a motion in limine is. Here's your I was a lawyer for a day thing, Charlotte. Motion in limines are argued before a case even starts, before a jury is selected or anything. It is basically in limine. It limits the kind of case you can put on. So the prosecutor filed a motion in limine against us, and they said basically we can't prove when life exists, and then we're just trying to save a life, and that's why we're here.
Yeah.
Like, you can't do that.
Right.
And so basically it really limited, like, we're crazy. Like, we're just nuts about, like, how we want to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. And so we go, and it was like sleepless, right? Because you're driving up to LA every morning and you have to be in court at 8. So with the parking and the driving and the eating and the whatever. And then at night, you're like preparing your case for the next day. And you've never done any of this in your entire life. And so we went to a law library in Santa Ana, and I'm just like looking up legal. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to even like find things in a law library. I don't even know how this stuff is argued, right?
Yeah.
And we're just trying to put an argument against that motion in limine, and of course the judge rules against us. Now, interesting thing is our judge, I saw him years later. The judge, and he was a very compassionate guy. We even imagined that his hands were shaking when he gave us our verdict. Of course we were convicted.
Yes.
Because all they had to prove was, were you there?
Blocking the...
And all that they proved was, here's how the police came in, and they blocked this area, and then they arrested people one by one. And so this proves that you couldn't have come in and gone out.
Right. It has nothing
and then
to do
you
with
were
the
arrested.
mission.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. It's just, were you there doing this thing that you're not allowed to do?
Right.
And were you arrested? Yes, you were. And so we were sentenced to 45 days in LA County Jail. Of which...
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy that seems excessive.
They were trying to make well, first of all, they'd had this happen twice. I think it was like 2,000 people came out the first time, and 500 the second. So they were just like, we've got a problem here. They needed to make an example. Like, this was going to be on, who knows when that was going to end. They had,
so it is about the mission, but it's not about the mission.
For us?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, for the judge making an example, it's obviously they're not making an example about blocking a pathway. They're making an example about a bigger thing.
Well,
not protesting the abortion clinics, maybe?
It's a civil problem. Like, that's what our legal system is for solving problems that humans can't solve amongst themselves, right? Someone has to come in and make a judgment.
Okay.
And by the way, at a trial court, before it goes to appeals court, at a trial court, all the judge is trying to do is come up with some sort of ruling that won't get overturned at appeal, because then that makes him look bad. And trial court judges are typically elected. So they just want the majority of their opinions not to be overruled. So that's fine. And he did a fine job and was a nice person and whatever. And we even liked our prosecutor. I mean, we were nice people.
Yeah.
Kind of, So anyway, so I got 45 days. We all did, of course. And went to Sybil Brand, which is a jail that's no longer open in East LA. That place is rough.
Wow.
And
East LA.
But I'll tell you, being in women's jail is very different than being in men's jail. Because
Yeah.
women are in for prostitution and drugs, typically. I met a few that were in for, like, embezzling, and only one did I meet that was in for any kind of violent crime, and she beat the shit out of her. She's a big Samoan woman. Mm-hmm. She was in the bunk next to me. And she beat the shit out of her husband because he took their 2-year-old to a park where drug deals were going down. I think he was involved in them. And there was a shooting while he was there. And this is her side of the story.
Of course.
That's all I'm hearing. But anyway, I met a lot of interesting people in jail. It's not an experience that I would give up for anything. Gave me a lot of empathy and compassion, helped me to know, like, how many people that's a revolving door for them. Mm-hmm. And how we're not totally, and some of them are just there because of poverty. They're like, I get 3 square meals a day when I'm in here. They'll like hand a rock of cocaine to a cop to get into jail, to get a roof over their head. So it was very interesting in that way. And I just don't talk about it that much because it's a nuanced conversation. I didn't, even back then, want any woman that had ever had an abortion to feel like I judged her. Right? Even then.
Right. And
now my opinion's 180.
That doesn't happen. Like,
but I'm like, I didn't want, like, I was different from a lot of the people that I was with. I didn't want Roe v. Wade overturned. I did not want a woman to feel ever judged by me. And if I can't have a long conversation with her, I didn't want to have any conversation. Right. So I just wouldn't ever.
But also, would you be the person who would want to adopt her child had she decided?
Yes,
right.
Actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted children. I never got to have them. But I haven't adopted them or fostered them either.
Right.
And I love, what is that, Jordan Klepper from Trevor
Daily Show?
Noah's?
Yeah.
He goes out and he's like,
he's funny.
It's like the people holding the signs, don't abort, adopt instead. And he goes up to every single, have you adopted? No. Have you adopted? No.
Right.
Have you adopted? No. And so I was at least willing, but I never pursued it.
Right.
Because I had a shit marriage that ended. Like, there was all kinds of...
You don't want to bring children into that nightmare.
It never happened. That nightmare.
Let me ask you a question. So, because we have some cousins, most of our cousins are very religious, white Utah people, and we don't really interact much other than like niceties on social media, but there was a time in the past where they were like posting pictures of these like healthy white newborn babies, and they were like, this is what you're doing when you're having an abortion or whatever, and it's not really, they're imagining like healthy babies being murdered, right? Was that what you were thinking when this was happening?
No.
Or did you have a more like realistic approach?
I'm a brainiac. So I didn't kind of fit in with that crowd to begin with. But, like, I had done, like, a logical conclusion of, if you can't... A life is no more valuable at, 3 months and minus 1 day versus 3 months plus 1 day or whatever.
Right.
The different types of regulation on abortion. And I'm like, the moment that the real change occurs is at fertilization.
Right.
Like, that was just a logical decision for me. None of the rest of the people I was running with were making that logical decision. But I had heard that, and I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. But here's what I'm not considering, because I'm not getting this information at the time. That rules out in vitro fertilization. That rules out, like, there's all kinds of other things. And also, just like, when is it a ball of cells versus when, and then they're trying to do heartbeat laws now. And I'm like, okay, so like, even at the end of life, when you just like barely have a heartbeat, I don't think that's any reason to keep you on machines.
Right.
And, like, there's all there's the weighing of the different competing rights.
Like you say, it's a very nuanced
It's very
conversation.
nuanced. And there's a story in the Bible that's about this. It's like King Solomon. It's why he's considered wise. 2 women come to him, and she's like, she stole my baby. And he's like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to cut this child in half and give you each half. And the one's like, fine. And the other was like, no, let her have it.
The Bible's
and it's
fucked
like,
Right.
the Bible is so fucked up. It's not even. So like, you just got to read it.
Yeah.
And so like, the one that said, no, let her have it, that's the mother.
Yeah.
She would want that child to survive whether or not she ever. Whereas the other one just wants to win a fight.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, by the way, that is such a simplistic, like,
Of
I don't
course.
believe
Right.
it ever happened
course,
or
of
whatever.
course.
Like, some dudes that wrote this
Right.
thing have the, like, simplest narrative in their head.
And it probably got translated fucking weird.
Right.
When it got translated.
And that was, like, when I finally got the courage to leave my marriage, there were scriptures, this is the words of Jesus, because, they'll try to say, oh, that's Old Testament. The words of Jesus were, it was all different. It was only in 3 of the 4 Gospels on divorce, right? And it was different. Subtly different.
Right.
But, like, I'm really concerned about this, right? I'm considering a divorce, and I don't have any biblical reason for... You're not allowed, because he raped you before you got married, or even while you were married. It's just... It's only if he goes and sleeps with somebody else. That's it. That's it. That's the only one. And I'm just like... And he wasn't going to do that, as far as I know. But, like, he wasn't going to do that. And so... I had no way out, and so I am looking at this scripture really closely, and it's like, basically I can never ever remarry, or I could never have sex again for the rest of my life.
Right.
Or I would be an adulterer. In some cases I would make him an adulterer. And so every day I don't go back to my ex-husband now, even though he's remarried, even every day I don't go back to him, I am in sin over it. And it made no sense to me.
Right.
That's just insane. And it's like there's women in much worse situations than I was in. Like, because we were basically friends, platonic friends in our marriage. There's women that are being beaten within an inch of their lives, and they can't leave. And I was just sitting there going, this is fucked up. That's when the wheels started to turn for me. But it still took me, even after that, it took me almost a decade to, like, shed that.
Right.
Because it was so, like, that was my tribe. That was my community. Even though I had had the bravery to walk away from my cousins who were my best friends, like it took me a lot to walk away. This is not all very funny, is it?
No, it's
We
actually
haven't laughed.
fascinating.
We
It's
haven't
not that
laughed.
it's not funny, but it's important.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I keep thinking of, there's a story, and it's not my story to tell, but there's a story of somebody that's very close to us, and it's their own very personal story, but it's like, there was a pregnancy that would have resulted in her death. Absolutely. And very closely did. Because it was like an ectopic pregnancy.
Yeah.
And so it's like...
And that's not allowed now either.
Yeah. So how can you just be so pro-life that you're going to be the person that's standing in front of the abortion clinic?
Because it's not like the fetus is going to make it.
Well, that's why I asked
Right.
the question about our cousins.
And with me,
right?
I'll tell you what was in my head when I was there in those days. We had these, like, counselors out there, lurking, looking for the women that are coming for their appointments. And I saw it as we buy them time to offer her other solutions, this or that, but, like, kind of by force. Like, that's not pretty. That's not ethical. That's not a lot of things. Like, she made the appointment. She had other choices in the universe. She knows adoption exists. She knows she could walk into one of those, like, pro-life counseling places. She understands that's available to her, and she didn't choose that. And we're saying, oh, no, second chance at, like, changing her mind.
Yeah.
That was my position while I'm sitting out there, but recognizing she'll come back the next day when we're not there.
Right.
Totally.
After we're all, cleared off the streets. And that was the reality that I just saw a little differently. Now, I know a lot of the people that I was there with are probably very much celebrating what's going on in our world today. And I'm not. By the way, my grandmother was always a Democrat. So although my immediate family was mostly Orange County Republican, my grandmother was a Democrat, I believe. I'm pretty sure. And when I started doing all this Operation Rescue crap, I wrote a very earnest letter to her about what I was doing and why. And the only thing she sent back to me was a folded up newspaper clipping of someone who had left a child in a dumpster.
Which is not
funny. It's not funny, but it is funny
right?
because of my grandma's, like, she was on it. Like, she's just like, oh, really? Boom. Like, that was the meme of her day, right? Was sending a newspaper clipping that makes the point. Yeah. And she made her point. And I always, like, I think about all of this in a whole different perspective now.
Yeah.
I feel like I had a nuanced perspective then, even though it didn't look like I did. I think everybody has, like, a complicated perspective, and then they fall on one side or another of a line.
Right.
And depending on how nuanced their perspective is, they might be way away from the line.
Right. And
hard to bring them back. But I felt like I had and that's why I think I was open, like, when I heard more information and more, listened.
Yeah.
And was willing to listen. And a lot of people are afraid of listening because they don't want to end up switching sides like I did.
I think this is actually kind of like a recurring theme sort of for us, at least for the past little while on our podcast, is like we're kind of, I don't know if we're growing, hopefully we're growing and we're learning from what we're doing, but it's like you kind of start to realize that nothing is absolute. As much as I want to think that my perspective is right, making fun of all the fucking Madison Cawthorns and Matt Gaetzes and
QAnon insane people,
Bobart, all that shit. It's like that's only one slight, tiny perspective of a bigger story, and it's like I feel like you kind of have to. Like, our listeners are probably like, yeah, get to the fucking point. We've been trying to, like, you're almost there. You're getting there. It's like, it's kind of about the journey and growing and being, I don't know what, compassionate.
Yeah, empathetic and even just try to see it from somebody else's perspective.
We just watched a movie on Hulu called The Painter and the Thief.
Right.
Which Charlotte didn't really like too much. I was on the fence.
It stayed with me, so therefore I didn't like it while I was watching it. But when you have to reflect back on something and think about it, then it did its job, right?
Yeah, it gave me a bigger picture perspective. If you haven't seen it, you should try watching it.
I will.
But it's basically like this
I
guy.
have to write it down because I'll forget.
Yeah,
the Painter and the Thief.
Our sister Tiffany told us to watch it. And it's basically like this guy who's a drug addict with his buddy goes in, breaks into an art gallery and steals this woman's, like, life work of her grand painting that she's done, 2 of her paintings, and how she befriends him and, like, comes at him, like, obviously she's trying to get information about where her paintings went, but she treats him like a human being, and then it goes.
I feel like I'm gonna love this movie just hearing the description.
It's really good.
Yeah, it is really good. And it really makes you realize that our prison system in the United States is fucking bullshit.
It is. I could speak to that.
Yeah,
right?
But yeah, nothing's absolute.
But there's not. Yeah, it's just like
we're all human beings, no matter. If you're like a piece of shit drug addict stealing art from an art gallery, it turns out you actually
that's not
your only.
Yeah,
that's not your story.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I feel like this all kind of like fits together. Like you are passionate about.
We love like good guys and bad guys in movies, and to simple it and dumb it down. But I like more sophisticated movies where there's like a nuance to people and there's more to people than that.
It's not that simple.
We can't categorize.
It's not that fucking simple.
Right. No, yeah, I love that.
So if we're gonna be excellent to each other, just remember, like, it's not always about the destination, it's about the journey, and don't close yourself off to potential growth by just focusing on the one thing that you believe is true. Like, you have to be able to hear the other sides. Sometimes it's bullshit, sometimes it's good,
right?
Sometimes
But
it'll help you.
It's smart to at least try and listen and be empathetic and kind of put yourself in the shoes of somebody you very adamantly disagree with just to try and see their perspective. I know I try to do that
You're
all
good
the
at
time.
that. You're good at that. I've watched you do it.
Right? I still come away with that you're fucking nuts, but I at least tried.
And if you disagree with our perspective, why don't you head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review?
Or even better, if you actually agree with us. It helps people find us.
You could become a patron for as little as $3 a month and as much as you want to give us.
Hey, do you have stories like Susan's? Do you want to be on our podcast? You can either send it to us and we'll read it, or we'll invite you to come on.
And lastly, please check out our YouTube page. We're always looking for likes, subscribes, and shares.
You can email us at FHEBadMormons@gmail.com.
And thanks so much for listening to our show.
Yeah, thanks. See you later.
Yeah, bye.
Thanks, Susan.